Hey guys, welcome back to the Leadership Detectives. Welcome to episode 33. We've got an interview here today with Adrian Thornton. Adrian is an RYA Yatchmaster Instructor and a Yatchmaster Examiner. Neil's known Adrian for many, many years, and they've worked together to get Neil as proficient as he is today out on the water. We take a look at leadership here from within this industry, this leisure pursuit, this walk of life. We're coming at things slightly differently than we normally do when looking at things from the views of a boardroom or corporate or commercial worlds that we so often get involved with. Adrian's got some great examples and some messages to share with you, so let's not hold you back any longer. Dive in, enjoy, and please let us know what you think. Have fun. Hey, welcome back to the Leadership Detectives. Here we are for episode 33. Fantastic.
We're kind of 33 episodes.
33 episodes coming up to the end of January. So in 2021, fantastic. Neil, how are you? Good to see you here. You good?
I'm outstanding, mate. Loving the snow. We've got beautiful snow here. It's been out fab out running in the mornings around here. And I'm also delighted and excited to be joined by Adrian Thornton today, who is my instructor for my sailing. You know, people will know I'm very keen on sailing, and Adrian's been training me for the last couple of years to be a skipper. And so delighted to have you join us. Thanks for joining us, Adrian. And how are you?
Yeah, good morning, gents. Yes, good, thank you. Just desperate to get back on the water because the thing called COVID has been in the way a lot. But yeah, looking forward to it whenever it happens.
And whereabouts in the world are you, just so everyone knows where you are?
I live in Bournemouth. I'm a chief instructor to a certain company, but the main thing I believe for this really is that I'm a Yatchmaster Instructor and Examiner. But yeah, I live in Bournemouth. I've got my own boat, private boat, just 5 minutes drive away. And I generally do the sailing or instructing in particular around the south coast of the UK.
And so I've sailed with Adrian now, as I say, for a couple of years, and really great instructor. Learned so much from him over the years. And Albert, you know, we've been out on the boat a few times, and the reason you've been safe on board is thanks to Adrian.
Absolutely. Adrian, thank you. You've been keeping me safe as well, so I appreciate that.
So let's launch straight in, shall we, and get the kind of the interview going.
Yeah.
I'd like to start off with a question that's kind of just going to help introduce you a little bit to the audience who might not know you. So what I'd like to ask you is, if you were being introduced onto stage, so you were going to onto stage, mixed audience of people from all sorts of backgrounds, what would you want them to know about Adrian Thornton that the introducer is going to introduce you on stage?
Yeah, that's slightly complicated. I've had 2 careers. This is my second career as such. So I think the first thing would be, hello, this is Adrian Thornton. He's here to chat about sailing, and he is a Yatchmaster Instructor and Examiner, so he knows a little bit on the subject. He comes from a military background, which really enhanced or started and enhanced his sailing career. Something like that, Neil.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. That's good. So we know a little bit about you. We wanted to pull this. The reason we wanted to pull this together was just thought it's a really interesting topic, because I've been doing lots of training around being a skipper of a boat. And, you know, that's a yacht, but it could be a motorboat or any kind of boat. And the skipper is the leader of the boat. So there's a leadership role in there somewhere. But when we do the training, we do lots of technical training. We do lots of training around navigation and around how to sail the boat, and not so much around being a leader. So I thought it'd be really interesting just to pick your brains on being a leader on a boat. So what do you think are the key things that make a skipper a good leader of a boat?
I think, first of all, he or she, let's just go down the he route, make it easier, needs to have the background, the foundations of theory and practical aspects of sailing. Mm-hmm. Then they gain their own experiences and confidence to then say, hey, Albert, can you pull this rope? Can you do this? Can you do that? And so we mentioned about sort of natural leaders, etc. But you've got to have, to me, you've got to have those experiences, a certain level of experience, whether you think you're a leader or not, just to impart that knowledge, just to say, can you pull this or can you push that as a starter?
That's interesting, actually, because that kind of suggests that you need to be a master of the craft to be a leader in that topic. Is that what you think?
Yes, and of course there are different levels of mastery. We can talk about the various levels of experiences and qualifications of sailing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you by rights you should be familiar with that boat or that vessel. Not necessarily familiar with the crew, which is part of the leadership, which we'll probably talk about later.
Yeah.
Mastery of good knowledge of the workings of that boat, just like you would getting into your car or a car.
Yeah.
You need to know roughly what things do left and right, and then to be able to impart that knowledge to the crew.
Which is interesting, actually, because it's different to the kind of the business world, where you can lead a business without actually knowing the nuts and bolts of what they do in the factory and what they do, in the warehouse, because you're leading a team of people that do know what to do. So that's interesting. Okay, so that was number one. What would you say are other leadership skills that are really important for a skipper to have?
I think particularly on the water is to be calm and not panic, not shout. I've had a couple of examples. If I shout, it's probably because I'm racing, and you're allowed to do that when you're racing against boats and shout at boats. But as just basic cruising around the world, you shouldn't need to shout at a person, at a crew member. You may be shouting because the wind is strong, but that's a different type of tone of voice.
Yeah.
Get your voice through the wind and not verbally attack your friend, your brother, your sister, your crew. So it's calmness, making sure that you can deliver and they acknowledge what you're trying to deliver, whether it's by voice or by your hands showing them something.
Yeah.
But I think calmness is pretty top of my list.
Interesting.
So that's interesting, actually, because we had a similar conversation with a firefighter crew manager, and in your terms, we're talking about the difference between leadership on the water as opposed to on shore and in preparation for going on the water. So tell us about the two different types of leadership in that regard.
Yeah, on the water, it's again, it comes down to calmness, but you only, to me, you gain the calmness by having the experience, the knowledge, etc. So just an example, simply just getting the boat to move from a pontoon and get it moving towards the water. You need to educate a little bit your crew, but it's just keeping an eye. Albert, could you do this? Neil, can you do this? When I ask you to, and hopefully that all goes swimmingly. And out sailing, out in the open sea, it's the same thing. Albert, can you do this? Neil, can you do this?
But that to me sounds like communication is really key, because you're communicating in advance and in a calm way, rather than expecting someone to know what to do.
Yes, and that comes into the different categories of the experience of the crew that you've got on that day. So I've got one analogy is I think you were there, Neil. Round the Island race is a big round the island of the Isle of Wight each year, and the company that I mainly work for and Neil's involved with, we take one or two boats around on that race. But the day before we have a practice session. And I may know Neil, but there's generally about 10 people on the boat. I may know their names, but more than likely I haven't sailed with 3/4 of them ever. So I need to train them up, not just to cruise a boat, but to be involved with 1,500 other yachts the next day racing. So I've got to teach them a little bit without much time. But also I need to delegate jobs because I cannot do them all. So, Neil, can you look after this section? Albert, can you look after this section? And I can't rush into it. I need to sort of make sure that they're at a reasonable level and they're accepting what I say and that system works. Or you get and hopefully we all bond together within a few hours or that day, ready to go racing the next day or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. What's interesting, I want to come back to this calmness thing, actually. I think there's a little bit of a layer down underneath that, because having sailed with you, you are incredibly calm in situations where I wouldn't be. And I know a lot of that is experience as well. But I'm guessing, what advice would you have for maybe a newer skipper? So someone who is not as experienced, so they're a day skipper or a coastal skipper. So they're a couple of years in, maybe that's just their first year of skipping a boat on their own. What advice would you give them on tactics for remaining calm? So how to create that atmosphere so that that is created? Yeah,
good question. There's two ways of going around that in broad spectrum. The sailing fraternity, it's not like driving a car on a road. It's different weather, different surface, etc. So every day is different as far as I'm concerned on a boat. Mm-hmm. So you can't say, I did this yesterday, I can do exactly the same thing today. Unlike driving from here to Tesco, there's a bit more traffic, but the roads stay the same. Well, the roads don't stay the same on the water. Mm-hmm. So you've got to gain. So one way is to gain your own experience without continuously increasing the geographical boundaries. So if you're used to sailing, or you've been learning to sail within a 20-mile radius of somewhere, well, and you've got the qualification, well, stay within that 20 miles and do more trips to gain your experiences within that familiarity of geography. The other way, and in fact, I like to encourage both, is to bring along an instructor or bring along somebody who you know is better than you, more experienced than you as a sailor, just to help. So you're still the skipper, but that person can whisper in your ear and say, well, maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that. So you're trying to use your own experiences and your own brain power to convert that into the sailing area of the day, but you've got somebody whispering in your ear. There aren't books that say you go sailing, yes, but it doesn't say this is how you become a leader on a boat in a book, as I'm concerned.
And I'm just thinking on the calmness thing, and I'm thinking of in the business world, but also in my kind of experience from the military, is one of the ways to create calmness when there is not calmness is having not well prepared in advance, good preparation, so that people know you've kind of done all the preparation in advance. Like when I go sailing with you, there's no way we're going sailing without having the right chart out. If you haven't got the right chart out, then suddenly you've gone from being calm to panicking because you haven't got the right information in front of you, or you haven't got the radio switched on or something. So that preparation's I think has to form part of it. And it's the same in business if you want to avoid any kind of panic. But the other thing which you've just said there is about rehearsal. It sounds like that's a key part of it as well, is the experience through doing it lots, which...
Yeah, and again, you can read a little bit, but then you've got to get out into the practical world. It's like reading a manual for how to operate a car. Great, thanks. But then you've got to turn the engine on, etc. Yeah, you've got to get out there. There's two ways. I've lost my thread here a little bit, so please ask another question.
Okay, go on.
I would think just something else to mention. So this is only my second time talking to you, Adrian, right? But certainly what I pick up is your temperament, and you are a calm person from what I can see. I've not been on a boat with you. Neil might tell me different, right? But your temperament and your desire for people to enjoy, I think, is really important, because you've got to put people at ease when they get on that boat, right? What you don't want is people a lot of panicky in a team that